Welcome to the Deep Dive, the only place where we take stacks of source material articles, research papers, forgotten texts, and turn them into actionable, fascinating insights for one person.
You. We are cutting through all the noise, bypassing, the surface level summaries and going straight to the core principles, finding those surprising connections that really matter to accelerate your understanding.
Today we're tackling a topic that, on the surface, sounds like pure, well, magic, but which our compiled sources insist is an overlooked, workable, and profoundly misunderstood science.
Magic of believing.
Exactly. We are asking, is there really a science that dictates coincidence, shapes luck, and, determines outstanding success?
And our deep dive today, it really centers on these foundational principles from a guy named Claude M. Bristol. And he had this great name for it. He called it mind stuff.
Mind stuff, I like that.
Right. And what makes his work so compelling isn't just what he's saying.
It's the man himself, isn't it?
It is. I mean, this guy was not some, cloistered academic or a spiritual guru sitting on a mountaintop.
No, far from it. He was a hard-nosed police reporter.
A police reporter, a successful business executive in investment banking. I mean, he spent decades studying, well, everything. High finance, the stock market, but also cults, mental sciences. You name it.
And that's the critical piece of context, isn't it? The piece you have to internalize right from the start. His training was journalistic.
Right, a field where you accept nothing for granted.
You chase the facts, you scrutinize everything. And yet, despite this really rigorous empirical background, he spent years observing these powerful expressions of belief in wildly different environments.
And I mean wildly different. He's on the ground watching the psychological effects of a Gypsy Smith revival.
Okay.
Then he's studying the intense, sometimes hysterical shouting of the Holy Rollers, the ancient practices of the kahunas in Hawaii, and even the quiet, disciplined faith of the Shakers. And what he saw time and time again was that people who used these consistent, deeply felt belief systems, no matter how strange the outer ritual looked, they got tangible, repeatable results in their lives.
So his conclusion wasn't, oh, these people are deluded.
Not at all.
It was that these forces, these results, whether it's physical healing or dramatic business success or sudden shifts in fortune, they were real.
They were real, they were repeatable, and they were simply unknown to most people. They were operating on some kind of hidden law.
And that is precisely our mission for you today. We are going to try to strip away the sometimes florid metaphysical or religious language that cloaks these ideas,
Right.
extract those foundational principles of what he calls this unknown science, and present them in clear, practical language.
Think of this as a roadmap for accelerated achievement, focused entirely on understanding the mechanics of applied thought power.
Okay, let's unpack this with the core thesis right at the start, because it's the fundamental assumption that everything else is built on.
It is. Bristol's deep conviction, and it's one he proved in his own life, is that any person can achieve any given aim, no matter how ambitious, if they just believe strongly enough.
And he frames this not as mystical fluff.
No, not at all. He sees it as a definable, though widely unknown, science, a science that's only been practiced by a fortunate few throughout history.
And he had some initial evidence for this, didn't he? It wasn't just a theory.
Oh, the evidence was immediate, and it was widespread. We see a mention of this earlier, shorter publication he put out called TNT. It Rocks the Earth.
Okay.
That brochure was basically a condensed set of instructions based on these principles. And the people who rigorously followed the steps laid out in that little guide, they came back reporting some genuinely astonishing results.
And these weren't like subtle changes. We're not talking about feeling a bit more positive.
No, we are talking about individuals reporting that they doubled and tripled their incomes. People successfully launching their own businesses from scratch, acquiring homes they'd always wanted, and building sizable fortunes in a pretty short period of time.
So the results were quantifiable.
Exactly. And that's what moved this from the realm of philosophy into, for Bristol, the realm of applicable science.
Okay, so to get past the results and understand how it works, how this subconscious machinery gets started, we have to grapple with a really profound premise.
Yeah, the idea that thought has a material reality.
This is where it gets really interesting, and you kind of have to shift your thinking. Bristol views thought not just as an internal process,
Right.
but as a terrific force with unlimited powers. He explicitly compares it to electricity.
Which is a great analogy. He says, look, we don't fully understand what electricity is, but we manipulate its effects to power our entire world. He argues the exact same thing is true for thought. It's this mental action that we see manifesting everywhere.
And the scale of this power
Yeah.
is total. It's
Right.
foundational.
Yeah, the sources emphasize that every single material object you can see in the objective world, whether it's, the high-tech equipment in your doctor's office, the simple wooden chair you're sitting on, a tiny pin, or a giant skyscraper, it all originated first and exclusively as a thought, an idea.
It had to be that initial invisible creative spark that then materialized through focused human work.
The source is emphatic here. It says thought is the only source of all wealth, all success, all great discoveries, and all achievement.
That's a huge claim.
It's massive. It suggests that if the thought doesn't exist first, the material thing cannot follow. You cannot build a billion-dollar company without first having the billion-dollar idea.
And this isn't just some metaphysical assertion he's making. He connects this idea directly to the cosmic perspective of, modern scientific thinkers of his time.
Right. We see references to Sir Arthur Eddington, the famous astrophysicist, who suggested that the universe is, and this is a quote, to an altogether unsuspected extent, a creation of our minds.
And even more dramatically, there's Sir James Jeans, who suggested the universe didn't just come from some random Big Bang.
But that it resulted from the thought of some great universal mind, a mind underlying and coordinating all of our individual minds.
So that idea that the entire universe is fundamentally mental, it lends a huge amount of credibility to the principle of individual thought power. It kind of grounds Bristol's work in high-level, if philosophical, physics.
So if thought is this incredibly powerful creative force, what was the personal catalyst for him? What was the thing that shifted Bristol's own thinking and unlocked this power for him?
He talks about a very specific, deeply emotional turning point. It was back during World War I while he was serving as a casual soldier in France.
And he spent weeks in just
Yeah.
intense, focused misery. He had no spending money. He's watching other guys freely enjoy small comforts like cigarettes or gum.
And he can't afford anything.
Nothing. And this lack of means led to this intense, sustained, and really focused bitterness. It was an emotionally charged, negative thought pattern that just dominated his entire mental landscape.
And then, that negative emotional state, it eventually hit a tipping point.
It snapped. It snapped into a fixed, powerful decision, what he called his own personal genesis moment. One night, he's on a crowded troop train. He's cramped. He's utterly fed up. And he makes a sudden, firm decision. I would have a lot of money.
And he said it sounded like a decree, not a wish.
Exactly. He admitted that at the time, he didn't realize the profound action he was taking. He was just making a final, emphatic decision. But that single, sustained thought, emotionally charged and fixed, it immediately altered the whole pattern of his life.
And it began to unleash forces to bring it about.
And the effects were fast. When he got home, he was almost immediately called by a prominent man in the field of investment banking.
A field totally foreign to his old life as a journalist.
Completely. He accepted the position, and in less than 10 years, he'd acquired a sizable fortune and become a major stockholder in a well-known firm on the Pacific Coast. The source of wealth literally just appeared in his path.
All starting with that one conscious, firm decision on a train.
Yeah. But it wasn't just a personal revelation for him. His career in banking showed him the dramatic problem of mass thinking. He watched his own firm, a thriving company, start to head toward disaster during an economic crisis.
But he realized the collapse wasn't necessarily because of objective external conditions.
Right. What he saw was that the members of his own organization were succumbing to mass fear thoughts. They were projecting anxiety, doubt, certainty of ruin collectively.
So they were, in effect, using their combined thought power to attract the very ruin they were afraid of.
Yes, they were creating it with their collective consciousness.
Wait, let me just pause there, because that is a radical claim. I mean, we're used to thinking of economic downturns as driven by supply, demand, interest rates, objective forces.
Sure.
Are you saying Bristol concluded that a multi-million-dollar banking crisis was fundamentally solved not by changing policy, but by a psychological fix, by changing the thinking of the employees?
That is precisely what the source material indicates. For Bristol, the law was absolute. The exterior world reflects the interior thought. Therefore, the solution wasn't external restructuring or waiting for the economy to rebound.
It was mental.
It was purely mental.
Mm.
The firm was saved by a simple reversal of the thinking of every single person connected with the organization, shifting that collective consciousness from fear and failure to confidence and a fixed vision of inevitable success.
That transition from an external crisis to internal control brings us perfectly to the architecture of the mind itself. To make this science practical, we have to look at the structure he proposed, which is the commonly accepted two-mind architecture.
Conscious and subconscious.
Right, the conscious and the subconscious.
And this separation is central to the application. Let's start with the conscious mind. This is the mind we feel operating in the brain during intense, concentrated thinking, sometimes so intensely you actually get a headache.
Yeah, it's the source of our objective awareness, our logic, reason, judgment, our moral sense. It deals exclusively with the objective world through our five senses.
It's the gatekeeper. It processes what we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell.
And crucially, it handles inductive reasoning.
Yes, the classic scientific method. If you're a scientist trying to discover a new serum, you collect physical facts, you compare them, you note similarities and differences, and then you form a generalization or a law based on that external data.
So the conscious mind analyzes. It
Mhm.
reasons from the known to the unknown.
Exactly. Now, the real engine, the source of that unlimited power Bristol saw in the Holy Rollers and the successful executives alike, that's the subconscious mind.
And this is described as the seat of great power, intuition, emotion, inexhaustible resources.
Its chief powers are intuition, emotion, certitude, inspiration, suggestion, imagination, and deduction.
And notice the difference there. The conscious mind induces, it learns from external facts. The subconscious deduces.
Yes, it accepts a premise as true and works tirelessly to execute it. If you feed the subconscious mind a premise, doesn't matter if it's true or false, it takes that premise as an absolute command and sets about realizing it without any questions.
That distinction, induction versus deduction, is so vital. The subconscious isn't logical in the same way. It doesn't judge the incoming thought or worry about whether the desire is achievable.
It just executes the order. And this explains why solutions to really complex problems so often appear fully formed when you wake up, like a mental picture that's just completely solved.
Authors and writers talk about this all the time.
All the time. They struggle consciously, they finally let go of the problem, and then the subconscious furnishes them with this steady flow of perfectly formed thoughts, sometimes leading them to write the very scenes they couldn't conjure while they were awake.
So the critical point then is the mechanism of transfer. How do we get that conscious, rational desire down into the powerful, non-judgmental subconscious?
Bristol describes this as the sinking feeling. When you have that intense, concentrated thought in the conscious mind, and you finally let go, you relax, you stop analyzing or worrying about how it will happen, the tension decreases, and the idea begins to sink downward.
And that's the communication started.
That's the communication. That process of transfer implies the connection has been made, and it initiates the subconscious's creative work.
And this communication can lead to these flashes of profound insight, which Bristol himself experienced and called it the illumination experience.
Yeah, he talks about the intensity of the moment. The idea for his first book, TNT, came to him. It wasn't a slow buildup. It was a sudden, unstoppable rush of knowledge.
He dictated the entire first draft in less than 5 hours.
With no prior notes, no outlines, no preparation, the ideas just flowed with this impossible speed and clarity. And at the same time, he experienced a brilliant white light.
And he actually toned down the description of the light in the first draft.
He did. A friend was worried people would think he'd gone off the deep end, lost his mind. But later he discovered that this exact experience, this fusion of intense mental clarity and the sensation of being surrounded by light, it paralleled what a Dr. Richard Maurice Buck described as cosmic illumination.
And Dr. Buck was a psychiatrist, right?
A Canadian psychiatrist, yeah.
Hmm.
He studied people who had these sudden, profound, transcendental understandings of the universe. And this phenomenon strongly suggests that when the subconscious is truly tapped and working on a grand scale, profound knowledge, the ability to synthesize years of reading, study, experience, it can all be received in a single comprehensive flash.
So the fundamental principle is established. Once the desire, the order, is clearly and emphatically transferred, the subconscious handles the execution.
Right. And that takes the burden off your analytical, worry-prone conscious mind and transfers the job to the inexhaustible, non-doubting power center.
Okay, now we move into the practical, repeatable steps. How do you actually give that firm, clear order to the subconscious? And the first applied technique is based on the law of suggestion and the mechanism of repetition.
Suggestion, whether it comes from you, that's autosuggestion, or from an outside source, heterosuggestion, that's the force that starts the machinery.
It's the spark.
It's the spark that ignites the engine and causes the subconscious mind to begin its creative work.
And the universal modus operandi across nearly all major belief systems, religious, metaphysical, ancient magic, political, is repetition.
It's everywhere. The sources detail how followers of so many diverse faiths like Buddhists, Muslims, New Thought adherents, they all use chants, incantations, litanies, daily lessons, frequent, often ritualized praying.
The goal is always the same.
Uniformity and depth of impression. We see this practice taken to these extraordinary focused extremes. Think about the Tibetan Lamas, or documented repeating certain prayers 108,000 times a day. Or the use of fixed chants for giving people additional strength. Repetition is the common denominator in everything from voodoo ceremonies and yogism to the specific affirmations used in Christian Science.
So all these external actions, they only have one function.
One function: to impress the suggestion so deeply that the conscious mind gives up its doubt and the idea sinks into the subconscious for deduction and execution.
But the sources issue a really severe warning here. This same force, repetition, can be a terrible weapon when it's skillfully used politically to mobilize the mass mind.
Yeah, and to paralyze individual critical thinking. The historical examples are chilling because they show the power of suggestion operating on a catastrophic scale.
You just have to consider Adolf Hitler's uncannily skillful use of propaganda. It wasn't just about controlling information.
No, it was about constant, repeated suggestion. The posters, the vast assemblies of flags, the synchronized marches, and that ceaseless chant, one Reich, one folk, one leader.
And Mussolini used a similar tactic, right?
Very similar. Simple, unavoidable wall slogans. Believe, obey, fight. The effect of this constant, relentless hammering is to force the mass mind into a specific, non-thinking groove.
And the conscious mind, just constantly bombarded, it eventually just gets tired and accepts the premise.
And passes it down to the non-judgmental subconscious, which then works to execute the collective will, regardless of whether the premise is true or moral.
And the most tragic and illustrative case of this involves the Japanese naval warrant officer Magoshi Sugino.
Yeah, for over 4 decades, the Japanese military fostered this belief through constant repetition in song, story, institutional memory that Sugino was the greatest suicide hero of the Russo-Japanese War. This figure who had famously and nobly thrown his life away.
This fable, this constant patriotic suggestion, it became so deeply embedded that it generated powerful, tragic results.
It caused thousands of young Japanese soldiers to throw away their lives during World War II, convinced they were following in the footsteps of this glorious hero. They felt compelled to embody the ideal that was projected onto their collective subconscious.
But the truth was startlingly different.
Completely different. Sugino didn't die in battle. He was found alive and well, living obscurely in Manchuria. He'd been picked up by a Chinese boat after the battle.
So the belief, based entirely on a lie perpetuated through repetition, it persisted and drove the collective sacrificial actions of thousands.
The belief became more real than the actual fact.
And even in the American context, we saw the same technique used during WWII with that clear, fixed goal of win the war unconditionally.
Right, that phrase, constant repetition, suggestion, projection of a single purpose, it overrode any individual dissent or complicated moral ambiguity, and ultimately shaped the entire mass mind toward a single objective.
Okay, so moving to a more positive application, we see this technique used masterfully in sports, the sheer power of confidence and suggestion.
Knute Rockne, the legendary Notre Dame coach. He was as much a psychologist as he was a coach. His players were champions, but their belief could falter.
And he famously exploited this during a halftime when his team was getting beaten badly. Instead of screaming strategy, he just
poked his head in the door of the locker room, looked around with his mock confusion and said, "Excuse me, I must have made a mistake. I thought these were the quarters of the Notre Dame team."
Wow.
That simple, stinging suggestion, implying they were unworthy of the name, it ignited this fierce internal reaction of fury and pride. It bypassed the logical conscious mind and went straight into the subconscious well of emotion and certitude.
And the team went out and won the game decisively.
The suggestion of their inherent greatness immediately manifested. And similarly, Mickey Cochran took a second division-minded Detroit Tigers team, a team that believed they were destined to fail, and drove them to the top of the American League through constant hammering of repeated suggestion. He just convinced them they were winners, and the subconscious executed the new command.
The father of modern psychology, William James, he really summed this up perfectly.
He did. He stated that our faith or belief in advance of a doubtful undertaking is the only thing that can assure its successful conclusion. And repetition is just the mechanic you use to establish that necessary, unshakable faith.
And once you establish it, you have to protect that belief from negative outside influence.
Yes. The Sozas tell this powerful story of a woman driving across the country on old, worn-out tires, despite a mechanic giving her this extremely dire professional warning that the tires would surely blow out.
She maintained a simple, fixed thought. They will last until I get across the country.
She refused to allow that negative, authoritative suggestion to sink in, and she drove the entire distance without a single blowout. The tires were threadbare when she arrived, but the job was done. Her belief literally postponed the inevitable failure until her objective was met.
And conversely, the source issues a severe economic warning. It claims hard times and depressions aren't just external events.
Right, they're collectively created when people think and believe in depression and fear. The sustained, emotionally charged thought of lack attracts lack.
They argue that money itself is sensitive, and it runs to cover when fear suggestions start circulating widely.
And that if people worldwide stop thinking and believing in depressions, wars, and financial collapse, these events would become non-existent, because nothing enters our world unless we first create it collectively with emotionalized thinking.
It just underscores the awesome responsibility we have in our own thought patterns. That profound lesson that thought must be fixed and definite. It leads us directly into the actionable, concrete mechanics for you, the individual. Repetition needs a fixed target.
Right. Most people just drift through life like a cork on water. They have a vague desire for success or more money, but there's no specificity.
So the first vital step is knowing exactly what you want out of life. A fixed, definite, measurable goal.
You have to know the objective before the subconscious can plot the course.
And the source provides a highly specific, repeatable, and incredibly simple method for projecting that desire onto the subconscious. The card technique. This is the ultimate actionable step.
Step 1. Get 3 or 4 business-sized cards. They need to be small, easily hidden, and something you'll see multiple times a day.
Step 2. Write a concise word picture of your uppermost desire. This has to be unambiguous, not just a better job.
No, something like a management position paying X salary, or a home of my own free of encumbrance. It has to be clear, and it has to resonate with you emotionally.
Step 3. Place those cards strategically, one in your billfold so you see it when you pay for things, one by your bedside table.
For immediate pre- and post-sleep access, another taped discreetly on your desk, maybe one on your shaving or makeup mirror. This creates constant visual repetition.
And step 4. This is the crucial activation step. You concentrate on the picture, you visualize the completed scenario, not the struggle to get there.
And you do this especially at the 2 most important times of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Just before you fall asleep at night and immediately when you wake up in the morning. That's when the conscious mind is relaxed and the subconscious is most receptive.
Step 5 is a big one. You have to let go of the logistics.
Yes. Don't concern yourself with how the results will come, the means, the contacts, the sudden ideas you'll need. You focus only on the definite outcome.
And the subconscious mind, once it has the firm order, it has its own silent, powerful ways of making contacts, opening doors, and generating the necessary ideas for execution.
And the final critical warning attached to this technique: do not tell anyone what the cards mean. Don't give anyone an inkling of your desire.
This is non-negotiable.
It is. It's a vital defense mechanism, because conscious or unconscious negative thought vibrations from others, driven by envy, skepticism, or even genuine doubt, can actively counteract your own projected beliefs.
So other people's doubt can jam the signal.
It can blur the picture on your subconscious screen.
Yeah.
You have to keep the intent pure and private until it's manifested.
Bristol actually did this himself, unconsciously, before he ever formalized it. His path to getting wealthy involved a peculiar habit he called doodling.
Yeah, he scrawled dollar signs, and specifically the symbol for the investment bank he worked for, on every piece of paper that crossed his desk. File covers, scratch pads, even in the margins of important letters.
And he later realized this was a constant subconscious trigger for wealth acquisition. It proved that the mechanics don't have to be formal cards and rituals.
They just have to be omnipresent and consistent enough to impress the subconscious with the image of the goal.
Okay, so to supercharge this belief and strengthen your personal presence, there's another technique, the mirror technique.
This is a supercharging method. It involves practicing visualization and affirmations while looking directly into your own eyes in a mirror.
And the principle here is that practicing in a mirror radically increases the mental vibrations.
Not only does the force of your words penetrate more deeply to your own subconscious, but those forces begin to flow outward, affecting listeners or prospects. It gives you this dynamic or fascinating power that Bristol says becomes visible in your eyes.
And we have some phenomenal, almost unbelievable stories that prove how immediate this technique can be.
Yeah, the first one is about the drunken executive who is hosting some really important guests. He realizes he's hopelessly intoxicated, excuses himself, stumbles into his room, grabs his dresser for balance, stares into the mirror, and just repeats one phrase.
You're sober, cold sober.
The process was rapid, instantaneous. Within 5 minutes of this intense autosuggestion, a physical transfiguration took place. His body became erect, his facial muscles tightened, the drunken look vanished, his eyes cleared.
And he returned to his guests, delivered a dramatic, flawless presentation, and appeared completely sober.
The subconscious, when given a definitive command, executed the change instantly.
And this isn't just for immediate physical changes. Historical figures used it for strategic prep. Both Winston Churchill and Woodrow Wilson rehearsed their most important speeches in front of a mirror.
And not just to practice cadence, but to project confidence and conviction onto themselves. There was also an outstanding insurance salesman who never called on an important prospect without first giving his sales pitch in front of a mirror, delivering it with the conviction he wanted to convey.
And the result was phenomenal sales. It just set him apart from everyone else.
This was even applied organizationally. In one pie-making company, they fastened small mirrors to the inside of the truck doors, so the driver salesman had to see them every time they opened the door.
And they were told to determine how many pies they would sell to a specific customer and then tell their reflection that exact number would be sold.
And one driver, who had consistently failed to sell this notoriously difficult restaurant owner, he suddenly sold her 10 pies on his first try using the mirror method.
It was a conscious shift from doubt to certainty, magnified by the reflection, which the subconscious then executed.
In Bristol's own firm, they used this to avert disaster by writing motivational slogans directly on the mirrors in employee rooms. Things like, "We're going to win," or "We've got the guts, let's prove it."
And the result was that during the worst years of the Depression, the salesmen who used this tool trebled and quadrupled their incomes, and they kept that success.
The mirror technique is also cited as a powerful aid in eliminating those persistent mental hazards, like the paralyzing fear of calling on a tough boss. By repeating affirmations in the mirror, convincing yourself you can make a fearless presentation, the fear just dissolves.
Okay, finally, the subconscious often communicates its plans through what we call hunches.
Right. These are the mental equivalent of a sudden, strong impulse or idea. They're described as communication from the deeper mind, usually about something related directly to your objectives.
And the true kind of hunch is distinct from just general anxiety or wishful thinking.
Yes, it arrives with a force and a conviction that gives you the momentum to act immediately, sometimes illogically, but always correctly.
And the warning that comes with that is critical. Avoid delay when a true hunch strikes.
Bristol's observation was that the fear of doing the wrong thing actively attracts the wrong thing. Putting off a decision only makes the problem greater and increases your fear. Making quick decisions, even if they aren't perfect, provides strength and honors the guidance of the subconscious.
We've covered the foundation thought as material and the mechanics, repetition, and visualization. Now, let's pivot entirely to the empirical proof. If this is a science, how do the sources back it up in the physical world? We can start with healing and health.
Well, medical practitioners today increasingly accept that thought and emotional states play a significant part not only in causing functional disturbances in the body, but also in curing them. The mind-body link is undeniable.
But the most undeniable, strange, and specific proof comes from the phenomenon of wart cures.
Right. Warts are viral, they're infectious, and you'd think they'd be resistant to simple suggestion. Yet the sources recount authenticated cases of warts just disappearing because of suggestion and belief.
We have the findings of Dr. Frederick Kaltz, a noted Canadian authority, who confirmed that suggestion works even to cure warts.
And Dr. Kaltz's findings, which were published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal way back in 1945, detailed the results of studying various magic procedures used for centuries to remove warts.
And these procedures were bizarre, covering warts with spider webs, rubbing them with raw meat, burying toad eggs under the moonlight.
All kinds of strange things. And Dr. Kulz found that all of them were effective if the patient believed in them. The common factor was the firm, sustained belief that the procedure would work, and that transferred the healing certainty to the subconscious.
And even more compelling is the use of suggestion in modern medicine.
Yes, the sources point to these systematic fake irradiation experiments in dermatological practices where X-ray therapy works even when the high-power switch isn't activated.
So the patient believes they're getting a potent cure, and that expectation of healing, the belief itself, becomes the active ingredient.
It executes the physical change. And the connection between the mind and physical health was starkly confirmed after World War II. Researchers found that a staggering 40% of all Army disability cases originated from psychosomatic causes.
A combination of mind and body ailments brought on by emotional disturbances like fear, hate, prolonged worry.
Exactly. This firmly establishes that emotionalized thought can lead to severe, measurable physical illness.
Okay, so moving beyond the physical body to external matter, the next proof point is mind over matter, or psychokinesis.
This is where concentrated thought actively influences a material object outside the body. And the sources detail these groundbreaking experiments at Duke University under the direction of Dr. J.B. Rhine.
And Dr. Rhine's team, they sought to remove all possibility of physical influence. They used dice, the old army type thrown by a mechanical device, completely eliminating human interference.
And they conducted these tests tirelessly. They made millions of throws starting in 1934.
The subjects, standing at a distance and concentrating on certain numbers, were asked to mentally influence the fall of the dice.
And the results were statistically impossible. They just refuted the traditional mathematical odds of millions to one against certain combinations reappearing with such frequency. Dr. Rhine concluded that the subject successfully influenced the fall of the dice by mental concentration.
That is a staggering scientific validation for the principle that thought creates after its kind. It suggests the mind can, in fact, affect material objects and skew probability through focused will.
The sources even provide simple experiments you can try yourself to demonstrate this. One is the paper pyramid experiment. A tiny pyramid folded from lightweight paper and carefully balanced on needlepoint in a draft-free room.
And by placing your hands around the paper and concentrating intensely, you can cause it to revolve.
Now, you could explain that away with slight heat waves, but successful practitioners can consciously relook the direction of rotation simply by reversing the polarity of their thinking. The goal is the key.
And similarly, there's the Rosicrucian dialet, a small clock-faced disc with an arrow delicately balanced on a needlepoint in a bowl of water.
And it can be commanded to revolve or stop at specific numbers through concentrated thought. The required power varies by person, but it reinforces the potential for projective influence over matter.
And this influence doesn't stop at physical proximity. It extends to thought projection or influence at a distance, affecting the mental landscape of other people.
This is best shown by the famous plumber's case that Bristol tells. He needed urgent plumbing work from this unfriendly shop owner. The owner was notoriously offensive, always too busy, generally hostile.
So he knew his regular strategy of begging or cajoling wasn't going to work.
Right, so he decided to perform a deliberate experiment in thought projection. He sat down and intensely projected friendly thoughts toward the boss of the plumbing shop, repeating the phrase, "All plumbers are good fellows, especially this one. He is a friend, and he will send a man immediately."
And within 15 minutes, a plumber appeared at his door.
Dispatched immediately by the boss. The plumber was friendly, professional, efficient. And when Bristol talked to the plumber, the worker mentioned that the boss had recently decided to change his attitude, that he was putting himself out to help people and was building a huge business as a result.
The timing was impeccable.
Bristol realized the shift in external reality was a direct result of his internal mental projection. What we get back, he concluded, is a reflection of what we project mentally.
We see this influence used intentionally in sales and negotiations all the time.
Yeah, a lawyer, while dictating an important letter, would visualize the person he was writing to, directing his thoughts and will toward him as if he were physically present. He found the letter always accomplished its intended end without any more negotiation.
A book saleswoman, wanting to move a specific title, would mentally repeat the name of the book she wanted the customer to buy.
And the customer would inevitably reach for that specific title. An automobile executive facing a difficult prospect would mentally repeat, "You're going to buy this car," until the sale was made.
This brings us to a really compelling tangent the sources explore: the power of women's belief. Ben-Hur Lampman suggested that women's inherent intuitive power, once it's fully realized and applied, could figuratively turn the world upside down.
Lampman believed that women, when they're committed, are supreme egotists, in the sense that once an idea is thoroughly embedded in their consciousness, once the subconscious order is accepted, they will stop at nothing to realize it.
They're often more versatile and adaptable than men, making external circumstances serve their internal vision.
And the historical examples of women who use this profound, unwavering belief to overcome massive obstacles are truly extraordinary.
You have the opera singer Grace Moore. As a child, she had a fixed vision of becoming a great singer. Later in life, she tragically lost her voice, and a specialist confirmed she had permanent damage, assuring her she would never sing professionally again.
But she refused to accept that external certainty. She put up this tremendous mental and emotional battle, clinging fiercely to her childhood vision. And she emerged from retirement, her voice restored and singing more beautifully than ever before. She overcame physical certainty with subjective belief.
Or look at Madame Marie Curie. As a child, a gypsy woman gave her a suggestion, a prophecy, that she would be famous.
And that suggestion, reinforced by her own intense desire, it fueled her relentless pursuit of science, even when she was barred from attending universities because she was a woman.
Her absolute conviction and desire to discover what was behind radioactivity literally drove her and her husband to the epical discovery of radium, the element that changed 20th century medicine.
She provided scientific verification for the fate suggested to her years earlier. It proved that a firmly held belief can attract the necessary knowledge and circumstances.
And Sister Elizabeth Kenny, the Australian nurse, she brought her revolutionary hot pack system for polio treatment to the U.S. in 1940. She was ridiculed, dismissed, openly scorned by established medical authorities.
They considered her methods quackery. Yet she used her iron will and singleness of purpose, her unwavering belief in her method, to force acceptance. She established her institutes and brought new hope to sufferers worldwide, forcing the medical community to eventually recognize her methods.
But the most astounding historical case cited, the one that truly tests the limits of mind stuff, is Opal Whiteley. As a girl growing up in poverty in a harsh Oregon logging camp, she steadfastly maintained this fantastical belief.
She was absolutely convinced she was not the daughter of her adoptive parents, but the daughter of Henri d'Orléans, the Bourbon claim to the French crown, which was, by all objective metrics, an utterly unfounded fantasy.
Yet her sheer unwavering belief created its own verification, in fact. The sources detail the uncanny progression of her life. By the time she was an adult, her background had somehow been verified or made to seem verified by royal circles.
She ended up traveling secretly with confidential documents. She was accepted into royal households and ultimately resided in the household of the Maharaja of Udaipur, the ruling Indian prince.
She was accepted and recognized as an Indian princess, HRH Mademoiselle Françoise de Bourbon.
As one Oregon newspaper man who knew her as a child put it, the way circumstances suited themselves to her plans was uncanny, almost supernatural.
So whether she influenced her destiny by thought projection over 5 decades, or whether her supreme, unwavering belief literally opened doors of royalty, the result was the same.
She proved that a belief, held with enough tenacity and emotional certainty, can literally create its own external, verifiable reality.
So let's synthesize this for you, the learner, and bring the core ideas home. This deep dive revealed that mind stuff is not simply magic or blind luck, but a structured, applied process.
It's predicated on the idea that thought is a material, creative force, and outstanding success hinges on the systematic application of belief, repetition, and visualization, transferring a fixed idea to the subconscious mind.
The takeaway for immediate application is that your predominant, emotionally charged thoughts determine your character, your career, and your environment. You are fundamentally the product and the image of your own thinking.
What you believe yourself to be, you are manifesting.
And this brings us back to personal responsibility and control over your internal states. Our sources reiterate that happiness is not a consequence of position or wealth. It is a state of mind wholly independent of external circumstances.
It's entirely internal, and it's controlled by your thinking. When you stop thinking of a problem, when you withdraw your emotional and mental energy from that distressful idea, the foundation of that thought just disappears from your consciousness.
And because thought is the source of all manifestation,
the distress vanishes. This is the profound power you wield over your own emotional and objective landscape.
So the ultimate call to action here is clear and direct. You are the creation of yourself. The subconscious mind, the engine of unlimited power, never fails to obey an order given to it clearly and emphatically.
Your singular task is to ensure that the orders you are consistently giving, through repetition, visualization, and deep belief, are precisely the ones you actually want externalized and materialized in your life.
To close, let's revisit the proof of this science, even in the context of scientific testing.
Right. Dr. G.R. Schmeiler's research into telepathy and psychokinesis found that subjects who firmly maintained that the phenomena being tested were a myth or false, those who went into the test with this belief invariably showed scores far below pure chance expectancy.
They performed worse than random.
Worse than random. Conversely, those who believed in the phenomena or remained open to the possibility achieved striking success, often scoring far above chance.
This confirms the magic of believing, even in the testing of the science itself. If belief or disbelief can literally depress or elevate your results in a controlled environment, consider this.
What self-limiting belief are you holding right now about your capacity for earning, your potential in your job, or your overall worth that is actively lowering your own odds of success, and what would happen if you simply refuse to believe it anymore, replacing it with an unshakable definite decree?